I'm Gab. He's Jules. Blue skies over West London. None of us are nervous about the playoffs or anything,
No.
but so let's put that to one side. We'll get to that later. There are some big games coming up. Big news also for Barcelona with Rafinha being
Yeah.
out just as they enter this kind of crucial stretch of games. We'll get to all that, but let's start with something that we knew was going to happen.
Yeah.
You said it. I think you kind of said it like every show since
Yeah.
for the past months. Igor Tudor is no longer the Tottenham Hotspur manager. I think it's probably safe to say the decision was made after the defeat to Nottingham Forest, and
Yeah.
then they gave themselves a little bit of time. Obviously, he suffered, the death of his father. The funerals were held on Wednesday, and eventually the announcement comes out today. But Jules, I think I'm right in saying we both believe that Spurs started looking for his replacement before that. Yeah.
Yeah, surely. I mean, I
So
think they were
after
just
Sunday, at a minimum.
yeah, exactly. They were ironing out like last details of the mutual sort of consent to part ways and
But you can talk to other people while
yeah,
you do that.
exactly.
Tudor's a grown up. He knew it was coming.
Yeah, exactly. For example, I think Adi Hutter, who's got quite a good chance, I think, to get this job, was contacted after the Forest defeat. So I think on the Monday or the Tuesday of last week, so a week ago, really. So I think they've put feelers out. I think they've been talking to Roberto De Zerbi as well, who they ideally would love to come for him to come now. And completely understandably, he wants to wait for the summer and know where they are and what the conditions are and the context. But the good thing in a way is that they have 2 weeks now without a game because they're not playing in the FA Cup next weekend. So that's the weekend off. So their next league game is in 2 weeks' time. So plenty of time for whoever is the new interim coach to come in
Well,
and
you say interim coach,
permanent.
but
Yeah,
it could be permanent. Yeah.
no,
De Zerbi's not going to come to be an
he's the
interim
only
coach.
one really. But all the other names that they would like, from Iraola
Well,
to Glasner to Marcos Silva to Poch, obviously are not available now.
right. What about Hutter?
So Hutter is not at the level of De Zerbi. I think that's what I meant.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So it seems to me that the choice here is pretty binary, in the sense that you either get a coach now, and that would be sort of the De Zerbi
Mhm.
option, or you get a coach just for these 7 days, and you have to look at this, or 7 games
Mm.
rather. Um, for me, the decision's pretty obvious. Get a coach or 7 games. I don't think the structural problems at this club. I don't think any coach, even if you got Pep Guardiola or Pep or Carlo Ancelotti, they're not going to have the coaching impact in terms of tactics and preparation, because there just aren't enough games left
Mm.
to do that. So you're just looking for somebody that can rally the players. The
Yeah,
players are
yeah.
much better than the people around them. I don't even know that you need to get an interim coach. But if you can get, I mean, certainly Sean Dyche, who's been mentioned, but Dyche isn't going to come for 7 games, is he?
I don't know. I
Would you
mean,
if you were Dyche?
no, I don't. I'm not sure really what he wants and where he stands right now. He might fancy the challenge. There's probably you can negotiate a really good bonus if you keep them up. To be fair, I think so that might attract him. I would not go for that. I think right now as well, you need. I mean, whatever happens, they need somebody as well who knows the club. Whether that's somebody like Ryan Mason, for example, coming back to the club where he spent a long time as a player, as an assistant coach, even as an interim coach. Whether you kind of get the support of somebody like Ben Davies, who's injured, so cannot play, but is obviously um, a big figure in that dressing room.
And
Whether
has
you
his
even
coaching
bring
badges.
as his coaching badges, but he would not be I think he would be part of a coaching staff. I don't think he would be the main coach, probably. But although I would like to see that, maybe even like another former player who's not there anymore. I'm not talking like Tim Sherwood or Harry Redknapp, but those kind
Glenn
of
Hoddle.
profiles. Yeah, but those kind of guys who know the club really well, I think are probably important right now considering the situation.
For me, in some ways, if you can't get De Zerbi, and De Zerbi said he doesn't want to take over at this stage, he
Yeah.
wants to take over in the summer, which I think is understandable, but maybe a negotiating stance. For me, the logical thing would be, like you said, if you need an inspirational figure to give speeches as like a figurehead, sure, maybe Glenn Hoddle will come in and do that.
Mm.
Go with Bruno Saltor, who's there, who's been part of it.
Yeah.
This team is not built for Sean Dyche type football. And if you can have Ben Davies as part of your staff, but Ben Davies, who has, like you said, he's got coaching badges,
Yeah. Yeah.
go from there and really challenge the players to get their way out of it. But we're going to break this down further on the Gab and Juls podcast and kind of ask, what does giant of Europe of English football have to do to get back where they belong? All right, Jules, let's try to get a better understanding here. I think from what you said, we're both in agreement that if you're not going to get the Zerbi now,
Yeah.
we want to go interim. In terms of
Yeah.
the Zerbi, we've touched upon this before. I think it's critical that you have the right environment for him because he can be a difficult
Yeah.
person, as we've seen in his last two clubs, in fact. And I think that's certainly something to consider in terms of long-term appointment because right now the stuff upstairs is not stable at all.
Mm.
And we're going to get to that in a minute. But in terms of the type of players that they already have, they've invested a lot of money in younger players and whatever. De Zerbi's probably a fit in some ways. On the other hand, we're talking off air. You mentioned, well, but there's a lack of creativity, and De Zerbi likes his creative players.
Yeah. Yeah.
Flip side, Madison and Kulusevski. I'm assuming we'll be back. I thought
Yeah.
Kulusevski would
For
be back
sure.
by now.
Yeah.
Can that kind of balance it out if we're projecting forward to next season?
Yeah, definitely. They would be a better team and a better squad with Madison and Kulusevski on the pitch, especially in terms of creativity. There was still, I think, there's still some issues to address in that squad, and they can do that in the summer if they stay up, especially if they go down to the championship. It's going to be messy, but if they stay up, they will be able to address whoever the new manager is, what he wants, and what kind of position he thinks that there's problem there. There will also be, you would think, players leaving anywhere in the summer, so they will have a bit of a rebuilding to do, and that's great. But before even that, they need to make sure that they're staying up because again, if they go down, this is not
Well,
going to be pretty.
You talk about players leaving, and I don't have the contract expiries and stuff. The tricky thing is the players who, a lot of these guys are coming off injuries this season. And in terms of assets where you could say, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice him to get a big transfer fee in,
Mm.
or even players who haven't played well, I'm going to find somebody to take him away. I think it's a little bit tough. I don't know that they have all this flexibility because, for example, Wilson Odebear, who we both love,
Yeah.
if you decide he's not going to be part of your first team plans, the guy's going to be coming off an injury. Kudus is now coming back, but again, you just signed him, so presumably it's not him.
Mm.
Solanke, then you still need to find a center forward. You got to resolve the Kolomoani situation.
Yeah.
Like, there's some really, really big calls to make. I don't know how much flexibility they're going to have over the summer that they can just move 10 guys out.
No, I mean, more players wanting to leave. I think Van der Ven will want to leave. I think Romero will want to leave. I think there's a couple of others who would want to leave, especially if there's no European football next season. And even more if you're in the championship. So if you're in the championship, it's going to be messy and everybody will want to leave and the club will have to let a lot of them go. If you stay up, I still expect some to say, I don't want to be here next season anyway.
Seriously wonder what the market's going to be like with Romero because of the amount of, I mean, certainly, or the internal market here in England, because of the negativity that he's gotten through his many red cards. And frankly, Van de Ven too. Van de Ven's had moments where he's clearly glitched. He's not had as many red cards.
Yeah.
And when you're at a big club in England and you have those situations and you're on high wages, I don't think you're going to move to another big English club. And then you talk about Europe, and then again, you're talking about Premier League wages. I mean, it's hard. There's not that many places, right?
They're Tottenham wages, not really like top Premier League wages either. I think there's a market for both of them. For Van de Ven in England, still sure. For Romero, not so much. I agree with you, and he's older too. But I don't think it'd be a problem. I think there will be suitors for them both. Other players in there, not so sure, especially after the bad season they've had. But I think there will be, even if they stay up, I think there will be a lot of tweaking and rebuilding to do with that squad, and that is needed anyway.
And that brings us to the next question. You know, with the start of the season, they had this set up with Fabio Paratici as an outside investor outside consultant.
Yeah.
And you can, because of his ban, and you can think of him whichever way you want to think, but undoubtedly he has a lot of experience and he has a big track record with
Mm.
hits and misses. And he was with Johan Lange, who I'm assuming Johan Lange was instrumental in bringing in Thomas Frank.
Yes.
Probably Johnny Heitinga too. Actually, we haven't mentioned him.
Yeah.
Is he
yeah.
definitely out of his club? I know he's not there at the club, but is his,
Yeah.
are the clubs still paying him? Because
No.
you might have wanted to keep him around.
Yeah,
He
maybe
it might have come in
been useful
handy.
now. Yeah.
But this speaks to a situation where, Johan Lange, I think, has to bear a lot of the responsibility for what happened. Daniel Levy is gone. The Lewis kids have kind of gone from one disaster to the other. If I'm a coach, especially an in-demand guy, if I'm Iraola, for example,
Yeah.
or frankly the Zed, even though he's unemployed, I'm going to want some answers, some explanation. If the Lewis kids were, I say kids, they're older than we are, but if they were here and they said, Jules, what do we need to fix here? What do we need to be looking at apart from individual players?
Yeah. I think it's a big project there. I don't think the club is in that bad of a position in the sense that there's a lot of really new people and I think talented people in key positions in the offices. From Vinay Venkatesan, who I think is very good and I think needs just a bit more time because it's been difficult for him since he arrived and since Daniel Levy left. But I think in key position, they've put good people in, really. It's just, he needs a bit of time.
Is that much of a Johan Lange fan?
I don't know Johan Lange, but so far he hasn't been great.
Right.
But so I mean, in the offices, not the kind of football side of it.
On the business side.
Yeah, everything. Because this club needs an identity that then will obviously drip onto the pitch, onto the players. You need the right coach that is in line. And we say that often, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, but owners in a way, but CEO, sporting director, manager have to be all aligned on the same page, being on the same page to take any club forward, really. And that has not been the case because of all the changes and because I think some people were the wrong pick sometimes. Now it's an opportunity for them, especially if they stay up, obviously, again. That they get that right. If they get that right, I think the rest will follow. It will take time, sure, because now Arsenal and City and Liverpool and Chelsea, even Chelsea to some extent, are way ahead of Spurs. But you need to get that right before getting the rest right, including, obviously, the next coach.
I take your point. You need to get that right. You need to at least have a plan. I don't think you can, because ultimately you have to get results on the pitch and other people, so you don't go down or you don't have another season of chaos where you sack managers. I think you're not going to get it right between now and June. I think the most you can do between now and June is convince them that this is a plan.
Yeah.
And this is the way forward and get them to buy into your plan. As far as Vinay is concerned, I would love to know, and feel free to message me. Was he clear on the fact that Daniel Levy was going to go when he took over? Because there's a big difference in taking a job where you're going to have a major shareholder who's going to be constantly involved, and it's more of a collaborative that's the reality of it. Some people might not like it. People might say, I don't know, I want to be the big boss. Okay. Versus taking a job where you have total autonomy of decisions, or as much as CEO is going to have, right?
Yeah.
Is this a different approach? And if he's had to pivot because he didn't know, because he thought Daniel Levy was going to be there every day, then that adds a lot more onto his plate. Daniel Levy, of course, getting involved in the football decisions and whatever. I think that is something that they need to answer. Johan Lange, frankly, at this stage, I always hesitate with directors of football because you never know how many of these signings, were entirely theirs, how many were, the manager or the guy above him. They're always in between, right? But clearly faith in this guy is very low right now.
Yeah.
There were reports that they talked about bringing in a second director of football to help him out. I don't know why people are following the Chelsea model.
No.
One person made the point, well, Chelsea's sporting directors are individually, they're actually very good.
Yeah.
Together, they're probably less than the sum of their parts. But one big advantage is if they're working for Chelsea, they can't be working for other clubs.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's another way, I guess, to accumulate talent. It feels weird to me that we've had 2 consecutive seasons of Spurs, a traditional Big Six club,
Mm.
punching so far below their weight, and it's got to feel weird to you too, like that we're actually
Yeah.
talking about them. I mean, last year they weren't going to get relegated because it was such a gap. This
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
this is a relegation spat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Things go really quickly in football. We know it, especially when you make wrong decisions, when there's a lot of interferences in your club, when your club is dysfunctional, like Spurs is right now, and has been not just now, but for a few years as well. And it's incredible to see. There's a few others big name club in other of our leagues that are also struggling. That could go down in Fiorentina for a long time, Sevilla or Valencia, But when you have the money that Spurs have, even if they still have to pay for the stadium, and that takes a lot of their revenues away and things like that, it's still incredible to see them with Wolves and Burnley, and they've at home this season. They the worst team in the league with Wolves. Burnley have won more points at home than Spurs. Wolves have taken the same amount of points at home in the Premier League than Spurs. Spurs are at the level of Wolves and Burnley right now, which is something that I never thought we would ever say.
Yeah, obviously injuries also
Yeah,
play
of
the part.
course.
We've been saying it all
Mm.
season. I think one of the big differences, and Fiorentina are kind of figuring it out now,
Yeah, and they'd
a
be
little
okay.
bit.
Yeah.
Sevilla and Valencia, slightly different situations because you've got people operating on historically big clubs operating on shoestring budgets,
Yeah.
and one of them with an owner who I think is the spawn of Satan, and the other one with owners who are fighting among each others all the time. So it's not a good situation here. At least you have owners who are in charge, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Whether they're good owners or bad owners, and they can give the positive impetus. But to me, there has to be real clarity on who's responsible for what going forward. Because as a coach, if you're De Zerbi, I don't know that you can, and you're ambitious and whatever. If you make a false move here, if you go into the wrong environment, this
Mhm.
could really hurt you. On the flip side with De Zerbi, I want to get just your take on this because people in the media have made a really big deal out of this over the fact that when he was at Marseille with Mason Greenwood,
Yeah.
He talked about Mason Greenwood. Now, the background with Mason Greenwood, for those who don't know, is he was being investigated for sexual assault on his longtime girlfriend.
Yeah.
Pictures were leaked or made public anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
of
Voice notes.
and voice notes especially. Eventually, I think probably because I'm in legal territory here, but as I understand it, the girlfriend and the girlfriend's family opted not to prosecute.
Yeah.
The investigation into him was dropped,
Yeah, that's right.
which in some ways is bad for him. Well, it's good for him because he's not going to prison. It's bad for
Yeah,
him in the
yeah.
sense that he never got clarity. He never got sort of, found not guilty.
Yeah, yeah.
Did Zerbi praised Greenwood? Not for this incident,
No, the
obviously,
player,
but praised him
Greenwood,
as
the
a player.
Yeah.
Apparently, several different Spurs groups have come out.
Yeah, I
And
saw that this weekend. Yeah, they won't deserve it there for that.
how seriously, as a club, would you need to take something like that? That when this guy was at another, I mean, I'll give you my take.
Yeah.
This guy was there to coach another club. He didn't go out of his way to sign Mason Greenwood. You speaking on him as a player. The police decided that they to drop the investigation. He's not coming out and expressing a judgment on what happened.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit harsh because what's he
Yeah,
supposed to say?
maybe.
I wish Mason Greenwood wasn't here with me in Marseille because I don't like the
I
story.
mean, he could have decided not. He could have said to the club, "Don't sign him." That's for sure. He went along. He was happy for the club to sign. He gave his green light when Mason was there, and Mason was very good for him on the pitch. He was praising him all the time. Like future Ballon d'Or winner and world class player, all that kind of
So
stuff.
it went over the top. You're saying?
I'm not saying
might
that,
be-
but maybe he didn't need to go that far,
Right.
and things like that. He knew very well how controversial this was in France. Anyway, the mayor of Marseille himself
Right.
told Marseille publicly, the club and De Zerbi and Pablo Longoria, everybody, that there was no room for Greenwood in Marseille. They didn't want the club to sign him. They still signed him. So I can maybe see that side from the Spurs fans' point of view. But it's also a different context. He's not coming with Mason Greenwood to
Right.
Spurs. Well, at least not that we know. So it might be a bit harsh, and I don't know. But we also know that this Greenwood is situation, incident, or whatever, is very sensitive here in the UK. We've always said that,
Right.
So I'm not too surprised either, to be fair.
Yeah. It's funny because before in the Levy era, and by the way, when I mentioned Daniel Levy, Daniel Levy got a ton of things wrong over the years. Just top of my head, the Gattuso, Nuno Espirito Santo, Paulo Fonseca fiasco where he's not sure what he's going to do, and
Yeah.
Um, but I think I think we've seen in the past, and the backlash to some of these people, that it is something that Spurs fans, probably because they don't just care about winning, they also care about their club. It
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
has, and this is something that you get, and I don't want to go and diss people who don't regularly go to games because they happen not to live in the Premier League or La Liga, wherever they support. There are certain people who just care about winning. And there are others for whom the club is much more important. It is part of their tradition and maybe reflects their values. That's how they see themselves, rightly or wrongly. And I think there's certainly a loud vocal minority of people
Yeah.
who, or maybe even a majority of Spurs fans, regular match-going Spurs fans, who feel that way. And so I think that's why this issue is so important to them.
Yeah.
Whether it's something to beat De Zerbi with over the head for the rest of his life, like you said, it would be different if Mason Greenwood were coming.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's wrap this with the percentages.
Yeah.
We kind of have to. All right, we're assuming Burnley and Wolves are down, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So we've got Forest.
Yeah.
We have Leeds.
Yeah.
We have Spurs.
And West Ham.
And West Ham. All right, the clock is ticking. Would you like me to go first?
No, I'm happy to go for you. I mean, I've said it before. Anyway, nothing has changed for me. I actually think that
they lost at home to Forest and nothing's changed.
No, because I thought they would stay up before, and I think they still stay up now. I think sacking Tudor is the right thing to do anyway.
You'll get a dead cat bounce
because he was out of his depth. I mean, he was out of his depth anyway. There, he was. When I thought he was going to improve the team, he made it worse. And it's me getting it wrong. What he did in Marseille, I thought was quite positive, and I just thought he could have a positive impact on this team, and clearly not. So I got it wrong, and he got it wrong massively. So I think they have more chances without him to stay up than with him anyway. I still see Leeds going down. I'm sorry, Leeds fans. I'm not convinced, even with the kind of little cushion that they have over the other three right now. So I would go for 40% Leeds, and then obviously 20.
Okay, I'm going to go. All right, I've gone higher on Leeds. I'm going Leeds 50%. West Ham 25%, Forest 20%, and Spurs 5%. But clearly, as the saying goes, they need to pull their finger out. All right, enough Spurs. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, Gab.
It's playoff time. Tuesday night, Jules.
Woo!
Let's start with Path A. My boys, Italy taking on Bosnia. I'm nervous enough, so I'm just going to let you handle
this. It's easy, Gab. I told you not to worry about the Northern Ireland game. There was nothing to fear about that game, and you were absolutely fine, and you will be fine. I mean, even to help you out, they reduced the stadium's capacity from 15,000 to 8,000 to make it less hostile for you. Bosnia are not very good. We know that, despite Dzeko still being there, because Alija Bejovic being still the future of Bosnian football, it's still very good. You'll have no problem at all qualifying.
It makes it more hostile because it's more compact, angrier people.
There'll be plenty of empty seats everywhere. Half of it will be empty.
And on top of that, though, it freaking snowed there. And the pitch is in terrible condition. They're not allowed to train on the pitch.
Yeah.
There's more rain coming. I'm terrified it's going to be waterlogged. And Jules, I honestly, like, this is not comfortable. I don't like this.
Nothing to worry about. But what would it mean if Italy were to miss out again?
Okay. So 7 countries have won the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened before. The World Cup winners have failed to qualify for consecutive World Cups. It happened to France, although they hadn't won the World Cup yet.
Yeah.
It happened to England. It happened to Uruguay. It happened to Argentina even. However, Nobody.
No.
Nobody who has won a World Cup, let alone somebody who has 4 stars.
Yeah.
4 stars.
Yeah.
That's as many stars as France, Spain, and England combined
True.
on their shirt. Nobody has ever missed 3 consecutive World Cups.
Yeah.
That would be the psychological damage. And I think what would scare me most is I think there would inevitably the overreaction, root and branch reviews, whatever else. Whatever the complaints, the one thing I think would be a legitimate complaint, and it saddens me, is that when Gattuso said, I want a 2-day training camp, can we find some time to get the players together in Coverciano, whatever, the clubs wouldn't accommodate him, couldn't accommodate him, said they couldn't accommodate him. That is a disappointment, and that's something that people are going to have to, I think, live with. Sweden faced Poland in Group B, fresh off Victor Gyökeres's hat trick in their 3-1 win over Ukraine. Jules, do you see some Graham Potter magic?
I mean, they scored early in that game, which I think played a massive part in this. And Ukraine and Ilya Zabani were not very inspired on that night, to be fair.
Stop dissing the Paris Saint-Germain
It's
defenders.
true, I have to say, because he's at fault on pretty much every single goal. So probably we need a little bit more to see the impact of Graham Potter on this Sweden squad. But it's good that they went through that first step towards the World Cup, and now they've got this final against the Poland team that was worse than them, by the way, against Albania, and probably didn't even deserve to go through like they did. So
it's hard to look good in a 1-game playoff.
Yeah,
sure.
North
Macedonia.
North Macedonia. I would just say Albania, North Macedonia. But yeah, I still think
I think Denmark played North Macedonia.
Oh, sorry. So I think Gyökeres, Potter, and Sweden have a big chance to go through.
Yeah, I think for Poland, you're going to need to have that moment of magic from the individuals, whether it's Zelensky, whether it's Lewandowski dialing back the years or something, and then defense out. Like you said, Sweden are not very good, but neither are Poland.
Yeah, exactly. And sticking with Sweden, Gab, some folks are unhappy that they needed the safety net of the Nations League to even be in these playoffs.
Yeah, so this is something that you had you had the system, and you had the winners and the runners up, and then you had this thing about if you were depending where you qualified or how you did in the Nations League, right down to the lowest group, which is why North Macedonia were in these playoffs.
Yeah.
You would enter these other playoffs. Now, obviously, the teams that were in Romania, Northern Ireland, and Macedonia, Romania, Northern Ireland, North Macedonia, all out. Sweden are the ones who take advantage of it. I have less of an issue with this because I think there's a certain, not randomness, but you can get screwed over if you're a mid-sized nation, let's say, you can get legitimately screwed over in your World Cup group because, you'll have an unbeatable top seed, and then you'll have a second seed that's substantially better than you. And you might be better than 2 seeds in other groups. So I don't have an issue. You still have to work to get there. So I'm okay with it. Jules, we're not done because we have more quick hits. Kosovo shocks Slovakia 4-3 away, and they'll take on Turkey at home. Jules, Vincenzo Montella's crew are heavily favored. But what a story that would be for Kosovo. It didn't even exist until as a footballing nation until that long ago.
Yeah, and it's a great story already anyway, to be fair, for them to be there, to have that chance to be 90 minutes or 120 minutes or so away from a first World Cup. Obviously, player from the diaspora, a lot of them, but still that unity. You saw that against Slovakia twice. They came back from behind. They played really, really well. They've got some really talented players too. But the best thing, I think, is how spirited they are, and they've always been. And it's, I think, natural to all Kosovars, really. So I think there'll be a lot of people, as great as this Turkey generation is, of course.
And they are favorites.
Yeah, they are favorite, even away from home. But I think there's a lot of people who also will be following this game and hoping that Kosovo could make more history.
I'll tell you what, about Turkey, obviously we talked about Yildiz and Kadioglu and Arda Güler and whatever, but it would be a story if Turkey make it too. It's incredible. Turkey haven't been to a World Cup since 2002.
It's a long time, isn't it? Yeah.
And when they were last there, they reached the semifinals.
Yeah. In parties, Denmark traveling to face Czechia in Prague. Gab, who do you have in this one?
I think Denmark are a more complete team. I think we saw a lot of Czechia's limits against the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah.
And again, it's fear. I mean, they needed penalties to advance, and you say it's fear. It's a
They were
one
two
game.
goals down, yeah.
They came from behind. It's the format as well that I think makes you play badly, right? We often say like these finals are often played badly, and this is the reason they are like little finals. But equally, reality check. Denmark are 21 in the world for a reason, and I think they ought to be able to ride this out. The one concern is how Czechia approached this, because against North Macedonia, yeah, Denmark won 4-0, but all their goals came after the break. And so if Czechia park the bus and wait for a long ball to Schick or something, who knows? Now let's turn to the Interconfederation playoffs. Bolivia beat Suriname, which means they're going to play Iraq. Iraq haven't played a game since November.
Yeah, and obviously, what story it will be for Iraq to qualify for the World Cup, for this World Cup as well, especially, it would be something very, very special. I think Bolivia have to be the favorite. We mentioned the Iraqi players, how difficult it was for them to travel and all of that, which kind of make it easy, on top of the fact that the country is in a war zone, obviously, that their players are a bit all over everywhere, that they haven't played for so long, they haven't trained that much either together. So you would think that this one is Bolivia's to lose, but again, as we've been saying before, with Kosovo, I think there's a lot of people who'd want Iraq to do something very special there and make it to the World Cup.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think the other thing with Bolivia is when they play in South American qualifying, right? At home, they have the altitude factor.
Sure.
Away from home, they can kind of be tough and gritty and hard to break down against usually more talented opponents. Here, I'll be fascinated to see, do they have to take the game? Because they tried to take the game to Suriname, and they couldn't. They had to come from behind.
Exactly.
So I think this is really, really close. I'm leaning Iraq.
And finally, Gab, DR Congo take on Jamaica in Guadalajara.
Yeah, so absences on both sides. Axel Tuanzebe and Rico Henry. Jamaica are really not good. We saw that in CONCACAF qualifying. They played New Caledonia, who are like 151st in the world.
Yeah.
They only won 1-0. They scored early with Catamarteri, who I'm assuming is the son of Danny Catamarteri. There's not too many Jamaican Catamarteris out there. Congo warmed up for it by beating Bermuda 2-0. Congo have that big game toughness. Of course, they have to go through the playoffs in Africa, beating Nigeria. Nigeria, who I think still have their complaint with CAS over ineligible players. I don't know why that's taking so long.
I don't know.
But we both agree Congo heavy favorites here.
I agree.
Now, of course, everybody else was playing friendlies, like France, who they played the A team against Brazil.
Yeah.
This was with all my love for Marcus Thuram, this was very much a B team against Colombia, and they rolled to a 3-1 win.
Yeah, all new 11 players in this team against the best team that Colombia have to offer. And I think this Colombia team is a really good team. For me, they're the biggest dark horses to come from the World Cup, and I think they do really well. But in this game, they were just outplayed, out-dominated completely by France. Kanté and Zaire Emery in midfield, Cherki doing Cherki things everywhere. And then even later on, when Ekitike and Mbappe came on, it could have been easily 4-5.
That was really mean, though, and uncalled for to set on
Mbappe.
Know.
I mean, for Mbappe, it's because he's a goal away from the Giroud's record. So obviously, I think Deschamps thought this might be a good opportunity. And to be fair, he should have scored another one that was ruled out for offside. But because the game was so badly filmed, you didn't get a replay. You didn't see really what was going on, if he was on or off. But this was very promising. The two games, the A team against Brazil, the B team against Colombia, it was very, very impressive from the French. Let's talk world champions, Gab. They sent out an experimental lineup and beat Mauritania 2-1. But Nico Paz opened his account with the national team.
You know how excited I am to talk all things Nico Paz. So this friendly, like both their friendlies were, kind of like last minute things, because of course they thought they were going to play the Finalissima against Spain in Doha. So they had to rejigger everything. Given the quality of the opposition, it's kind of hard to really judge where you are. I don't have a problem when you looked at different players. You're not going to learn anything, but it's a chance to talk about Nico Paz. How absolutely fantastic he is. This is the first of many. Mikel Oyarzabal scores twice as European champion Spain beat Serbia 3-0. They too had to organize a last-minute friendly, of course.
Yeah.
I guess Oyarzabal does a fine job impersonating a center forward.
Well, you say that. I think even if De La Fuentes had, I don't know, number nines available,
Erling
really,
Haaland.
Samu. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but he doesn't have Erling Haaland. But even if he had the ones available as a number nine, from Morata to Samu to whoever you want, even younger ones, I just think there's something that works really well with Oyarzabal in that number nine position for this current Spain team. The 2 goals he scored, the first one especially outstanding collectively, and then in his finishing, he's been great for them. And his head coach defending him even after the game in a way, saying he's a world class forward, that he can do everything, which I think is true, and he's a super smart player as well. So I just love him, and I think he's perfect for this team. And I think again they will go really far in the World Cup, and he will have a really good World Cup too.
Interesting. I think this is pretty close. I mean, you can make an argument for Nico Williams. Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan, but this is pretty close to Spain's first 11.
Yeah.
And I look at this and I go back to what I said before. Like in terms of individuals in certain positions, I don't think they're that good. But as a collective,
Yeah, they're the best. for sure.
yeah, if they're not the best, they're pretty
Yeah.
darn close to the best. Nice to see Victor Munoz as well
Yeah.
being given a shot.
Brazil lost to my boys France back on Thursday night, Gab 2-1. But the real damage might be to Barcelona with the injury to Rafinha.
Yeah, it's a muscular injury. They're saying 5 weeks. Brazil, by the way, will obviously play Croatia next without him. I expect wholesale changes from Carleto for that game. It's big because it's going to cover both games against. It's going to cover like the 3 times that they play Atletico
Yeah.
Madrid, twice in the Champions League, and of course in La Liga. He's touch and go whether he'll be back in time for the Clásico against Real Madrid, which obviously could be pivotal.
It's big, yeah.
Even if he comes back, I don't know what condition he's going to be in, and I think he's important because we go on about the high line all season long. The high line is an issue because the front people don't press properly. When he's not there, especially, they don't press properly,
yeah.
other than Fermin Lopez. So it's a big loss. The United States, meanwhile, gets spanked at home by Belgium 5-2. Jules, are the Red Devils better than some people think, or is the U.S. men's national team not as good as some people think?
I mean, I don't think the U.S. men's national team is better than Belgium anyway. So I'm not sure why people are surprised that
maybe
they lost that game.
They're not better than Belgium, but they shouldn't be giving up, losing by 3 at home. They're
No,
5-1
maybe
down.
not. I mean, the game was a bit strange, I thought, and there was a lot of things that both head coaches tried, and players who were not there. You do a lot of things. That's this. Usually at this time, that's what you do, and we see a lot of teams doing it. So I don't think they should worry too much because again, I don't think they're good enough to beat a team like Belgium during the World Cup anyway, or a team like like France or those kind of guys. There's probably
you're putting Belgium, and we're not putting Belgium in the same category. But
they're not far from France, but they are right.
Belgium
there.
are probably in the second group, right? If most people
but
have
not
like
far behind.
Okay, but so
this is not like Serbia or a team like that.
But I think it's fair not to expect to lose by 3 goals to a team in the second category.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, no,
At home.
sure. So they lose by 1 goal. You didn't expect them to beat Belgium, right?
I expected. Well, I didn't know how interested Belgium were in this game or whether it's going to be how experimental it was going to go. I know obviously there was no Tyler Adams in this game and no Dest, although again, for Dest you've got Tim Weah, so I don't think there's that much of a difference. Center backs may be more the issue. I don't understand when you've had success with the back 3 and when you said we're going back 3. And I wasn't that big on the back 3, but you decide to go back 3, fine. Then suddenly in this game you move back to a back 4 and you play well for a half, maybe half an hour.
Yeah.
And then it all falls apart and Jeremy Doku becomes unplayable.
Yeah, exactly. But I just don't think there was much that would have surprised people in the performance and the game anyway. This is where they are. Right now, I don't think they can compete with a team like that. They might be there in 3 months' time, but right now they're not.
Right. Do we expect Belgium to get to quarterfinals minimum at the World Cup?
But the US as well, unless they have to face a team like Belgium before, and then it will all be on the quarterfinal if they make it to the last 4 or not, because you would expect their quarterfinal, like everybody else, to really be when the World Cup starts, when you have a hell of an opposition against you.
I don't know. If you're talking quarterfinals, and we'll get to the next question, I have to ask myself, like, okay, then that means that there's only 7 teams in the world who are clearly better than the US. Right now, I think there are more than 7 teams, substantially more than 7 teams.
Yeah, we see. because Pochettino Gab said before the game that we plan to be in the semi-final at the World Cup. We need to start to dream today to be in the semi-final. Are you going to be mean about this?
I'm not necessarily going to be mean about it. And to him afterwards, he said the plan doesn't change. This is motivational talk.
Yeah.
I think, like I've said this before about his communications, I don't think he fully understands the market that he's speaking to when he's talking to the people who follow U.S. football. Both not so much the ones who follow it closely,
Yeah.
but the more casual fans. I think he needs to somehow give them a different message. Of course, he's going to say, we want to be ambitious and go far in semifinals. That would be tremendous achievement for the U.S. because he's not going to have to face anybody after the World Cup is over. He was a hired gun for the World Cup.
Yeah.
They're paying him an absurd amount of money,
Yeah.
right, for this. So of course, if he says, "Oh yeah, no, well, round of 16 would be resolved," and it depends on like Greg Berhalter could say that 4 years ago because he said he was planning for this. Pochettino is a hired gun, right, for this World Cup. So of course he has to say this. I don't think it's a clever thing to say because you have raised expectations to the point that if they screw up their first game, the backlash, again, not so much from the US fans who follow the teams, who can see the weaknesses, who understand this, but I assume there's going to be this massive interest in from non-football media who are listening to this and who believe this and who really think that, oh yeah, they have a good chance of reaching the quarterfinals. They don't. Reaching the quarterfinals would be a tremendous achievement. That would be a massive overachievement. Like I said, I asked you a question a few minutes ago. How many teams right now would I easily put ahead of the US? It's the ones we always mention. It's Spain, it's France, it's England, it's Brazil, right? Off the top. It's Argentina, who happen to be the world champions. I would easily put Senegal ahead of them, right? I'm assuming you would agree. Tell me if I'm wrong here. I put Morocco ahead of them.
Yeah. Portugal. No, but there's
Portugal, that's 8. Colombia, you said were the big dark horses.
Yeah, for me,
that's 9. Are we going to, we don't know. Might we put Germany ahead of them? Would we put Belgium ahead of them, given they just spanked them 5-2?
Yeah.
Right? Where do Korea and Japan come into it? What I'm driving at, Jules, is he's in this unique position, and it's a difficult position to be in. But when you take the 1-year contract, you have to go and say things that I don't think you believe. And where it becomes dangerous, I don't think the players believe it. And if all of a sudden everybody turns on you after just one game before you have time to recuperate, then it can affect your team. So I think he's playing a dangerous game there. Thomas Tuchel's experiments continue with England as they draw 1-1 with Uruguay. But Jules, Ben White makes the headlines. He scores. He gets booed. And then he gives away the penalty that allows Fede Valverde to equalize in injury time. Now, there's a big backstory here going back to Qatar.
Yeah, because he left the squad at the World Cup in Qatar, didn't really feel comfortable in that environment, which I think that story has never really been told properly.
Because he's never told it.
Yeah, because we all know it, but nobody's saying it or writing about it or, things like that.
And it's not something that's so private and personal that there's a reason why we're not telling it. It's just it's his story to tell, and he hasn't told it.
Yeah. And I think he was probably right to say it. I just don't understand why people boo him without knowing why he left the squad at the time. If you don't know, don't boo. It's as simple as that. If you know and you decide to boo because you're in disagreement, fair enough. If you know nothing, why are you booing? So I didn't get it. I don't think Tuchel helped in the press conference that he gave before that. They're talking about it when he was not there. That he probably doesn't even know exactly what happened.
Jordan Henderson, what about your pal? Blame the media.
Yeah. I don't really know why either. But I just felt a little bit for him because I actually don't think he deserves to get booed. Not that he will care, but
I don't think he deserves England. Maybe he wants some mega insurance in case Reece James gets injured again. But right back as a position where England, I feel, have so many options that I don't know why you need to get another look at him. Also, because between now and the end of the season, we may not see Ben. Once Timber returns, we may not see this guy play again for Arsenal.
Yeah, true.
So what are you going to do? Bring a guy who's Timbers, who's Arsenal's second or third choice right back?
No. But in what Tuchel wanted to do, I don't think White is going to go to the World Cup. But for what Tuchel wanted to do, whether we agree or not, in this international break, he had to take more players, and then I think it's right for White to be there now, but he's not going to go to the World Cup unless there's a lot of injuries. So I can understand why Tuchel did it in a way. I just don't understand the fans' reaction. That's the only thing.
On England, this game was played at Wembley. Mark Ogden messaged me this morning, and he had a shocking thing. He said the last time England played an away international friendly was in 2018. That surprised me initially because normally it's one in, one out. But the reason is simply Wembley is so big and so lucrative. England fans
Yeah.
always buy tickets,
Yeah,
sometimes to go and boo the team and create a toxic environment. To be fair, right?
yeah.
And that nobody wants to host. Every other nation wants to come to Wembley because they can make more money out of it.
Yeah.
Is that healthy? Is that actually hurting England a little bit?
No, why?
Well, I think the thinking is you're not used to playing away from home, albeit in a friendly, and Wembley can be. So they haven't all been at Wembley. Some have been in other cities in
Yeah,
England.
yeah.
But I don't know. The argument, I think Mark might say that you're not getting a very well-rounded if you never play away friendlies away from home.
They play
And
away from home in qualifiers and Nations League.
they do, in fact, yes. That would be
So
my riposte to
I don't
him.
know. Now you play.
But you're not going to
two
play.
friendly
But
in a
you're not
year.
going to play an experimental lineup in the Nations League. I think that's
No,
the
no,
argument.
true. Yeah.
right?
I mean, I don't have an
It's
issue
weird
with,
though, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe also because you probably have England fans or English people who live abroad and would like the French went to the US, for example, for this international break. And if England had gone to Boston and Washington like the French, there probably would have been a lot of British expat over there who would have liked to go and see the game. Maybe.
But then you would have had a lot of angry Premier League clubs that their England players were leaving.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Everton have reportedly asked the Premier League to explain why Chelsea didn't get docked points after being found guilty of making illegal payments to agent, executive, and intermediary during the Abramovich era. We mentioned that on last week's show. Gab, what are the implications? And do you understand Everton's point of view?
Yeah, I think a lot of people understand it. This is a complicated case. I mean, you've made the point. Others have made the point that they should be docked points because they gained an advantage from this. The flip side, of course, is that Chelsea self-reported this, and the current Chelsea owners weren't the owners at the time. This all happened in the Abramovich era. The Chelsea executives back then are all out of football, from Marina Granovskaya to Bruce Buck. I think the implications here is I think it's also a way of putting some pressure on the FA because the FA will have to rule on this as well.
Yeah.
And sort of ensuring that maybe they should get stiffer punishment. I think Everton also say, well, hang on a minute. We were docked points for violating profit and sustainability rules. Chelsea did not violate profit and sustainability rules, but in some ways, what they were found guilty of is more serious. You're paying bribes and backhanders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who are watching this. You can't rewrite history necessarily, but there are teams who finished second to a Chelsea side that had some players who, frankly, arrived because of illegal payments.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if somewhere lawyers are sharpening their pencils to see if they can seek some more compensation, which is not what Bowley and Igbali want to hear. No Cristiano Ronaldo, and Mexico draw 0-0 with Portugal and Mexico City. Jose's game, though, was somewhat overshadowed by the death of a supporter who fell from a VIP area onto a car park below.
Yeah, I mean, the game in itself, there's nothing to see much apart from maybe the little. It was quite feisty, I thought, at times. But yeah, really sad news in the new Azteca Stadium, who'd been refurbished in the last 2 years, reopened for this game, and obviously would be there for the World Cup. Beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful before. It's even more beautiful, I think, now. And I think it's a very, very special stadium. However, this fan there who drank far too much, wanted to go from the second floor to the first floor by stepping over some sort of fencing, apparently, and just fell all the way to the top. So really, really sad. And let's hope that maybe security around this was maybe not exactly to the point. I don't know exactly how it happened, but that we don't see any repeat of this, obviously, in the month now leading to the World Cup and at the World Cup. CAF have announced plans to expand the African Cup of Nations, AFCON, from 24 teams currently to 28 teams, Gabby, as the tournament also will move from every 2 years, which is now, to every 4 years.
Yeah, so this is the CAF executive. I think it still needs to be rubber stamped. So, all right, 28 teams. I'm assuming you're talking 7 groups of 4 and then
Yeah,
the
I think
best
so.
placed. But what do they go to then to 16? Like it seems like
28 is to be a win number. You go to
it,
32, really,
it,
but
it seems like pretty unwieldy
yeah,
to me. Um, the weird thing though is if you miss the AFCON being every 2 years, don't worry about it because 2027 there's another AFCON.
yeah,
In 2028 there's going to be a bridge AFCON
yeah,
because the next one after that is 2032. But they also have plans because to introduce the African Nations League and have a 16-team final tournament every 2 years. Hey, look, just like the AFCON.
exactly.
So it looks like you're going to end up with more tournaments if all these things come to
Yeah,
pass. Uh, look, I don't begrudge the FAs making money here. But what I don't want to hear then is people going on and complaining player welfare and stuff like that, right? Seems to be like a response from a lot of people who moaned when they decided to move the AFCON to every 4 years. A 16 team final tournament, depending on the format. It's one thing if you'd make it like they do with the Nations League in Europe, where it's semifinals and then a final. It's quite another thing if 16 teams. What are they going to be like? Is it going to be like in Europe where it's 16 teams, but you've got sort of 4 semifinal, 4 final fours, if you want?
yeah. They
Or
didn't give more information, to be fair, when
it better be that
Motsepe
because
announced it.
otherwise you're going to get a tremendous amount of backlash. And yeah, it's an odd
Yeah,
situation
it
where
is.
odd things happen.
It is.
Let's go to the Women's Super League here in England. Manchester City destroy Manchester United 3-0. They go 9 points clear at the top. Jules, are you ready to crown them champions?
So they've got the 9 points clear of Chelsea, same amount of games played. They're 11 ahead of Arsenal, who have 2 games in hand. So
So no.
potentially 5.
Is there another head-to-head coming up?
No more head-to-heads, sadly. And to be fair, when you look at City's fixtures left in the competition, sorry, I don't see where they could drop enough points for Arsenal to bridge that 5 points gap. Arsenal would rule all their draws because they've only lost 1 game in the league all season when City have lost 2, for example, and Chelsea 3 or 4. But those 5 draws by Arsenal earlier on in the season, especially, have cost them dearly, really. So I think City, for the first time in 10 years, because it's been a long, long time since they last won the title, will be crowned WSL champions. And they would deserve it because they've been really outstanding all season long. But it's not just, according to the Marcotti rules, not just exactly there for
And
now.
Arsenal also will have some Champions League football
Yes,
to worry about, potentially,
exactly.
if they...
Yeah, this week,
Yeah.
the quarterfinal second leg that you can follow on Disney Plus, by the way. Roma and Everton could both be in the Europa League next season, Gab, and they have the same owner. So UEFA will make a preliminary assessment tomorrow on this case. But reportedly, there won't be a blind choice situation like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, so this is all pretty murky. So the blind trust, as we've seen, I think UEFA have kind of concluded, most people have concluded that it's kind of like nonsense, right? Mr. Marinakis resigns from the board of one club
Yeah.
and he appoints his friends on the board. And then as soon as the issue is resolved, then all of a sudden these guys resign and Mr. Marinakis comes back. He's still the
Yeah.
owner, right? So the idea is you have a 30% shareholding, but obviously the Friedkin Group own like 98 and 99% of Rome and Everton.
Yeah.
They're not just going to give their shares away to somebody. Although I'm sure Mr. Texter would happily take the shares if they were,
Right now, we take
give them
anything.
free. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So they're talking about UEFA using the term operational decoupling. They're saying no transfers between the clubs, reduce the voting rights at the board. But again, that's kind of stupid because how often does a club board actually vote
Yeah. And
on
what?
anything?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, and also, you appoint other board members so that the Friedkins are like, oh, look, we only have 30%, but who are they going to appoint? They're going to appoint a bunch of step and fetchits who are going to do what they want, right? Like Mr. Marinakis' friends. So it's a messy one. If people who are really cynical will point to the fact that, the Friedkin Group, very close to the current UEFA administration. And it feels like a fudge. I think you need clear rules and just enforce the rules. And if it means that, hey, look, one of these 2 teams is to drop down, assuming they qualify, Roma 6 right now, Everton are 8. One of these 2 teams is to play in the Conference League. And you know what? Since you both have the same owner and it's ultimately you care about money, allow Roma then to, let's say Roma get Europa League, make more money out of it than Everton in the Conference League. Allow Roma to share
Yeah.
their winnings with Everton. Do stuff like that. This is what
Yeah.
it's all about ultimately, right? But you have to have rules. You know my thoughts on MCOs, and I'm glad they're going away. Goals from Nico Jackson and Ismail Assar gave Senegal a 2-0 win over Peru in their friendly. But Jules, the story here is how they paraded the AFCON
Yes.
trophy in front of a sold-out Stade de France. It doesn't look to me like they have any intention of
No.
giving it back.
Absolutely not. Well done to Senegal for trolling the way they did, CAF and everything else. I mean, the Morocco FA even sent some sort of
Spy?
lawyer. No. It was because he was actually official. Some sort of like admin guy to check on to see if the trophy was there or not. I mean, the best thing is we knew that it was very likely they would brought the trophy in. We were not completely sure. They played with a shirt with 2 stars,
Right.
including the second star for obviously the last AFCON. So it's full trolling from Senegal and totally, as we said, deserved, I think. After the game, obviously there was a mix zone in the Stade de France, as you say, sold out Stade de France, 80,000 people, Senegal fans there, very happy to celebrate the trophy and the AFCON win. Youssou N'Dour, who's the greatest African singer and Senegalese singer, probably in African music history. Youssou N'Dour was there singing before the game as well. So it was this massive party in Paris for it. And after the game, the players said, like, we won it on the pitch. This is where you win things, not in offices or tribunals or things like that. So they're never going to give this trophy back. And I think as we've been saying before, Gabby, Cass will go with them anyway.
Yeah, what I think also is I spoke to somebody ahead of this game, and they were concerned because obviously, yes, there's a big Senegalese population in Paris. There's an equally big, if not larger, Moroccan community. And that, what if there's trouble? What if they do this? What if they troll them? I think Morocco fans don't want the trophy. I don't think they care.
that much.
I think they probably think, like me, you walk off the pitch for X many minutes,
Yeah.
you forfeit the game.
Yeah.
However, they also, if they're football fans, also recognize that on the pitch, Senegal were the better team on the
Yeah.
day, and Senegal deserved the trophy. So I don't know how you're going to get out of this. Like I said, the right thing to do for me all along was to have Senegal forfeit the game when they went down, and the referee had the power to do that, and he chose not to do it, or maybe he was empowered, or maybe he was told not to do it. There's a whole mystery here about what actually happened, right?
Yeah.
Once it goes this long, like I said, if you're a Moroccan fan, you don't want
absolutely.
this trophy.
Napoli have reportedly given Romelu Lukaku an ultimatum. If he's not at the training ground on Tuesday morning, then he will be suspended from the squad. Is the love affair between him and Antonio Conte over now?
Well, it's interesting. This is
It's a
a
weird
weird one.
story.
It's kind of unnecessary. Obviously, he was injured in the first part of the season. He came back. He's only played a few minutes here and there, I think, over the last months, give or take, or 6 weeks, I should say. Romelu Lukaku, as you can imagine, is a very large man.
Yeah.
And, him getting back to full fitness, just simply with his physical structure, is a more delicate thing, right? And the official story from Napoli is that we need him to get fit, but we have Højlund. Højlund's doing well, blah, blah, blah. We really want him. We really need him. The story from the other side is Lukaku was called up to the Belgium team, was sent home because they said, you're not fit to play. He really wants to be in the World Cup. And so he said, I'm going to stay in Belgium and try to recover over this break, right? But what do Napoli care? I wouldn't have been here anyway.
Yeah.
Napoli are saying, no. You need to come back here to recover. If I were really cynical, I might suggest that Napoli are like, wait a minute, we're paying this guy an absurd amount of money. We have this other guy, Højlund, who's does a lot of the
Younger,
same thing, but
better,
more
yeah.
importantly, he's a lot younger. I think it's sad that it's come to this, that it's the reality. I don't know I don't think the relationship between Conte and Lukaku is broken down. I think it's more that Conte, as ever, puts winning first and the team first, and he's going along with it. And he says it's nothing personal; it's just business. I would like to think that if Lukaku got on the phone to Conte, he said, "Hey, will you get my back? will you understand this? Because I've got a
Yeah.
World Cup coming up, and you know how hard I've worked for you, and you know what our relationship is. I would hope that between those two guys that they could resolve it that way.
Mm.
It's obviously rather than Conte saying, "Hey, I'm not the one calling the shots here. It's the club. I'm not happy either." But who knows? Conte may yet do that.
Yeah,
Conte,
yeah.
we know how unpredictable he is, right? So who knows? They've got Milan coming up after the break. Things don't go according to plan. Conte might come out and say, "You know what? We lost this game because the club are being unreasonable, and De Laurentiis is mean, and he was mean to Lukaku, and that saddened me and it affected the whole team, and blah blah blah." So I'm not going to
Yeah,
put.
yeah.
I don't want to believe though that the relationship between these two men was anything less than genuine. Roy Hodgson, 78 years young, has come out of retirement to take over Bristol City, whom apparently he coached in 1982 before you were even born, Jules.
Just after I was born, 44 years ago, indeed, they got rid of him, and now they're calling him back for the last 7 games of the championship season, where they are not going to go up, Bristol City, because I think they're 16 points behind the playoffs. They're not going to go down because I think they're 16 points above the relegation zone. What's the point, you would ask? Sure, apparently it's going to help them get better organized as a whole club, and set the tone of their identity and philosophy and all of that all as a club to make them better. I mean, clearly he was not happy being retired and enjoying his garden and his family and something else. I don't know why. I don't know why he would go back there. I don't know why they would call him back. It's incredible, I think. I just don't see the point of it at all.
Yeah, you don't need to name a manager. Like if you just want him to help out your club, if he's attached to the club, you can say,
Do like a
"Hey."
Roma Ranieri type,
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
a manager, he's just above in the offices and stuff. I really, really don't know. Emotional scenes in Antalya, Gabby, where Iran, despite the war, played a friendly against Nigeria. They lost 2-1 in an empty stadium, but it's hard to imagine what these players must be going through.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something nice about FIFA here. So if you don't want to hear it, block your ears. This is going to be part of a four-nation tournament. People make fun of the FIFA series. They're like, "Who wants to watch these rubbish teams play?" Well, they want experience from teams outside their region. So this was supposed to be this four-nation tournament with Jordan and Costa Rica, and of course Nigeria and Iran. So actually a pretty decent standard, given that
Yeah.
Jordan's going to the World Cup, by the way.
Yeah.
And Nigeria lost a playoff to go to the World Cup, and Iran, inshallah, will go
Are
to the World Cup.
going,
So, but obviously you can't play in Amman because of the political situation. So, because Iran will only let them play neutral countries. Turkey officially a neutral country. So they move this tremendous security in Antalya, which is sort of a holiday resort
Yeah.
type situation, media blackout and everything. Players weren't allowed to speak. So from what I could tell, there were no fans there. They lost 2-1 to Nigeria, as we said, but it was hard not to be moved when they took the pitch with they had pink and purple backpacks in memory of the 165 children that were killed at the girls' school in Minab in the early part of the war, and there are investigations ongoing to see how it happened. It's so tough for me personally. I hope there's a way to get them to the World Cup, because wherever you stand on this, there's Iranians around the world who I think could draw maybe a little bit of solace from this. Jules, this brings us to an end on this depressing note, but we're gonna come back on Thursday. I make no promises about what state of mind I will be in. Until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.